In ancient Mesopotamian history, one of the earliest and largest empires to emerge was the Assyrian Empire, considered the greatest among Mesopotamian empires due to its vast territorial extent and the efficiency of its military strategies. Located in northern Mesopotamia, the Assyrians began their journey as a modest nation-state in the 2nd millennium BCE. The history of the Assyrian people starts in the city of Assur, situated in the heart of Mesopotamia in present-day Iraq. Founded around 2600 BCE, Assur thrived greatly due to merchants who grew rich through trade in the region. With this wealth, Assur grew to become the epicenter of future Assyria. According to the biblical book of Genesis, the city was founded by a man named Assur, who was the son of Shem and grandson of Noah. After the flood, Assur is believed to have founded Assur and other important Assyrian cities. In later years, the Assyrians began worshipping a god named Assur, from whom the term Assyria derives. Originally speakers and writers of Akkadian, the Assyrians later adopted Aramaic as a more common and accessible language. This linguistic shift reflects the Assyrian people's adaptation and evolution over time, as Aramaic was easier to use, facilitating communication and writing within the empire. Historians typically divide the history of the Assyrian Empire into three main periods: the Old Empire 2600-2025 BCE, the Middle Empire 1363-912 BCE, and the Late Empire, also known as the Neo-Assyrian Empire 911-612 BCE. These periods witnessed the rise and fall of Assyrian power, each bringing its own achievements and challenges. During the height of the Old Empire, particularly under the reign of King Ereshkigal I around 1974-1900 BCE, a significant event occurred in Assur, the establishment of free trade. This meant that instead of the government controlling trade exchanges with other places, the population itself took on this responsibility. This was a highly innovative idea at the time, making Assur a crucial city for trade in northern Mesopotamia and earning a reputation as a dynamic trading hub. However, over time, trade in Assur faced challenges. Increased wars and conflicts among neighboring states in the Near East negatively affected the city's trade. Assur often faced threats from larger foreign kingdoms and experienced a period of instability, particularly during the Assur dynasty around 1880 BCE. During this period, many civilizations competed for power and influence, including the Zurites and the Hittites in the Anatolia region. Meanwhile, to the north of Mesopotamia, the city of Assur was somewhat overshadowed, but a new power was emerging in Babylon, the Amorites. They grew increasingly powerful over time, conquering lands and resources. Amorite king Amurru-Sumuabit took the throne and paved the way for his son, the famous King Hammurabi, who became king around 1792 BCE. Hammurabi not only consolidated Amorite control over Babylon, but also expanded its territory, conquering Assyrian lands. As Babylon gained prominence, Assur and Assyria were not idle. Assyrian king Shamshi-Adad I first expelled the Amorites from their lands and established Assyria's borders, claiming Assur as the capital of his kingdom. Under his leadership, Assyria began to emerge as a regional power. Adad's extensive conquests in the northern Mesopotamia region led to the formation of the Upper Mesopotamian Kingdom. However, this kingdom, dependent on the strength and charisma of Adad, did not last long and collapsed after his death around 1776 BCE. After Hammurabi's death in 1750 BCE, the Babylonian Empire faced difficult times. It was a period of turbulence as Babylon began to decline, and Assyria sought to regain control of the region around Assur. Syrian kings of this time faced many challenges, especially during the reign of Hadai around 1726-1691 BCE and his successors. During this period, there was an attempt to bring stability to the Assur region. As was crucial in this effort, facing threats of civil war and revolts. Hadad's successors followed his policies, maintaining the region under control but refraining from further expansion. Instead, they focused on strengthening their borders and ensuring stability within the empire. Later, the Middle Empire began, covering a crucial period from the rise of King Ashur-bel-Nishu around 1365 BCE until the death of Tiglath-Pileser in 912 BCE. This was a time of great transformation and expansion for Assyria, marking its establishment as a true empire in the region. When Urartu began to rule Assyria, it sought independence from the domination of the Mitanni kingdom of the Hittites. Urartu's rise was a crucial milestone because it not only declared Assyria's independence, but also aspired to become a great king like the Egyptian pharaohs and the Hittite kings. This ambition was not just territorial, it was also ideological, seeking to expand borders and incorporate uncivilized territories into its empire. Urartu's war was mainly against neighboring states to the south of Assyria, and it also engaged in diplomacy with Babylon and Egypt. Under Urartu's rule, Assyria began to expand and became one of the great powers of the ancient Near East. However, his successors were not as successful as him in expanding and strengthening Assyrian power, leading to the new kingdom developing hesitantly and weakly. Around 1265 BCE, during the reign of Salman I, Assyria reached its peak. He decided not to bow to Babylon anymore. Salman wanted Assyria to be the leader in Western Asia and dreamed of a great Assyrian empire. He conquered distant lands, fighting the Hittites in Anatolia and establishing colonies in Cappadocia. When he conquered Carchemish, a very important place for trade and also strategic, this ended up strengthening Assyria's control in the region. Sanza's son Tukulti-Ninurta continued and expanded his father's legacy. He was a very brave king who invaded Babylon and proclaimed himself king of Sumer and Akkad, a title that was very prestigious. With this, Assyria became the unquestioned leader in Mesopotamia, ruling Babylon firmly for 7 years. But history does not always follow a simpler path, and during the revolt in Babylon, Tukulti-Ninurta was killed by his own son, marking the end of one of Assyria's most powerful reigns and bringing back the independence of Babylon. But even facing these twists and turns, the Assyrian Empire persisted in its quest for expansion. King Tiglath-Pileser I stood out as one of the great Assyrian conquerors and led the empire to distant lands. He conquered places like Armenia to the north and Cappadocia to the west. These conquests further increased the power and territory of the Assyrian Empire. After the reign of Tiglath-Pileser I, the Assyrian landscape entered a new chapter with the arrival of Tiglath-Pileser I. This monarch, who reigned from 883 to 858 BCE, was the first great king during the Neo-Assyrian Empire period and expanded the empire's borders on all sides and further consolidated his power. Under his command, Assyria flourished not only in terms of territory but also in wealth and art. However, this king's history is also marked by some cruel and brutal acts that shocked people at the time. History tells of scenes of terrible punishments that were applied to rebels and prisoners captured during the campaigns of Tiglath-Pileser I. Around 745 BCE, King Tiglath-Pileser I began to rule and ushered in a new era for Assyria. During his time in power, the empire took on a completely new form. What set him apart from his predecessors was his pursuit of centralized power. For the first time in history, Assyria introduced the idea of a centralized and bureaucratic government. The conquered lands were organized into provinces, each with its own bureaucracy responsible for paying taxes and providing soldiers for the army. Speaking of the army, the Assyrian forces under Tiglath-Pileser I's rule became a true fighting machine. It was not just a temporary army for specific campaigns anymore, but from that moment on, it became a permanent force ready to advance at any moment. One of this king's first measures was to ensure control over the main trade routes towards the Mediterranean. This included dominating the Phoenician seaports, which was a strategic move that gave Assyria significant influence in the region's trade. But he did not stop there. In 729 BCE, Tiglath-Pileser's peak ambition was achieved when he was crowned sovereign of Asia in the majestic city of Babylon. This was a landmark moment not only for Assyria but also for the entire region. Babylon, one of the oldest cultural and political centers in the world, was now under Assyrian control again. However, this expansion of the Neo-Assyrian Empire came at a very high human cost. During the campaigns to conquer Israel, for example, Tiglath-Pileser initiated the first wave of mass deportations of the Israelites. This practice, unfortunately, became common among Assyrian kings after him as an attempt to destabilize the resistance of the conquered populations. After a brief reign of Tiglath-Pileser's son called Salmanasar V, King Sargon II ascended the Assyrian throne and conquered Israel and annexed Ecbatana. This strengthened Assyrian control over these regions. Sargon's son Sennacherib sought to emulate his father's power, but he ended up entering history in a different way because Sennacherib destroyed the ancient city.